get my B flat. I don't know if they lead you all into the master and say, ooh, this thing can't sing. Thank you. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Praising the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. You gonna do that first? Jambo. Jambo is a Swahili word that means hello. So when I say Jambo, you say Jambo. 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 Great. I'm Lisa Williams, your MC for today. And I am excited. I'm excited about being here on this stage representing a phenomenal organization that I'm also a member of. I want to welcome you. Welcome to the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers Black History Program. The theme of the program is Black Resistance. And what a fitting thing. Because we as African Americans, we have been resisting fire in the deep past up until the present. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful and meaningful thing. Today you're going to hear three awesome storytellers. You're going to hear from Janice Burnett, Cheryl Oden, and Vicki Slaughter. At this time, what I'd like to do is first acknowledge our president, Larry Castleberry. And I don't necessarily see her in the audience, but she definitely deserves recognition. I'd like to also acknowledge our immediate past president, Jatu Gray. On behalf of the organization, I extend a very big thank you to the administrators of the Charles Wright Museum. You see, they've allowed us to stand in this space and fulfill a component of our mission. The Storytellers of Dads, which it is affectionately called, we go out to churches, libraries, senior citizen homes, schools, and other venues and we share the ancient art of African storytelling and the traditions of Black storytelling. We are impacting the communities. You see, when we share the history, the food, the culture, the Black experience, we build a bridge between the Black community and other ethnic groups. We dismantle this misconception of the Black culture. We redefine normal, and we affirm to our Black children Blackness. So what I want you to do is I want you to go onto our website, which is DetroitStorytellers.com, and I want you to check us out. Then I want you to head on over to our YouTube channel, put our name in the search engine, and listen to our storytellers tell stories via the internet. And then I'm hoping that you'll sit here today as well and enjoy this experience and be inspired to make a donation. You can find our P.O. Box on our website, make a check or money order out to Detroit Association of Black Storytellers, and our treasurer is available right outside the door to take donations. Asante, which means thank you in Swahili. At this time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to offer land acknowledgement and libations. Elders, do I have your permission?
Yes.
This community acknowledges that this ancestral land is the land of the three councils of fire, Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations. We acknowledge that this land was colonized via the Detroit Treaty in 1807. We acknowledge that enslaved African Americans lived in this city and helped this city to grow, to progress, to become what it is. We acknowledge that a diaspora of people of African origin who were not settlers, but whose ancestors came here via the transatlantic slave ship, that they played an integral part in the development of the landscape of America. We acknowledge that enslaved African Americans helped build this land. We acknowledge that without the Black experience, our history would not be what it is today. I now offer libations. Libations is the ritual of pouring water to show homage to those who came before us, to show gratitude to those who were resilient and resistant, so that we could navigate through this life easier. When we talk about libations, libations is a symbol of pouring water into a plant. The water represents the purity and sanctity of life. The plant, it represents life and our connection to the earth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show libations by pouring this water into the plant. And upon saying something, I'm going to say Ashe, and I want you to say Ashe, which means so be it. Ashe? Ashe. Oh, baby. So, we will begin libation. In the name of those who died on the slave ships, I pour water into this plant. Ashe? Ashe. In the name of those who were enslaved African Americans, I pour water into this plant. Ashe? Now what I want you to do, I want you to think about the people in your life who are alive and who are dead, and who have poured into your life. And I want you to begin to call out their names. Begin. In the name of those who were called out today, I pour water into this plant. Ashe?
Ashe.
Thank you. Get ready, because you're about to hear somebody awesome. I'm going to introduce to you our first storyteller, and her name is Janice Burnett. Janice is committed to telling Black stories throughout the community. She believes that African folklore and African stories are the roots and the wings, moonlight and the dark of night. Music is the bright, shining moonlight in the long night of our struggle. Music is deeply, deeply rooted in our DNA. It's who we are. It's a barometer of our soul. It tells who we are, where we are, and how we are. And so, come with me. I'd like for you to walk with me to the distant past, because it's always best to start where? In the beginning. You perhaps have read or heard that European slave traders went to Africa to get slaves. I want to correct that and tell you today that European slave traders went to Africa to get free people and make them slaves. They were husbands, wives, men, women, children, hunters, herdsmen, musicians, artisans, farmers, midwives, chained and forced into slavery. You perhaps also have heard that when our ancestors came in chains, they brought nothing but the body God gave them and the chains of cruel men. Again, I want to correct that. They brought with them their culture. That's right, I said culture. They brought with them their culture, their food, their music, their poetry, their skills. Oh, they brought so much more with them. Our ancestors chained, boarding those wretched ships, going down deep into a cargo area meant for bales, boxes, boards, barrels, not for human beings. There, lying chained in that darkness, they sang the first song of resistance in a moan. The soul crying out, where? How? Where will I go? How is this going to be? That was the first cry out. You know, it doesn't get a lot of press, but when Africans were on those ships, they did not remain there. That trip took months. They brought our ancestors out for a so-called shower, to shower them from the body waste that covered their bodies. They brought them out to shipside, and as they walked around in the sunlight, our brothers found empty barrel pans, and they began to reach back to all that they had, and they drummed, and the men and the women began to dance as they stood on that ship. Slave traders probably thought, oh, they happy, they're dancing and singing. But we were calling on our ancestors, see us now, see us in our agony, be with us, do not forsake us as we travel with these ungodly persons. They sang, they danced. Now another thing that slave traders knew, they separated like village people. They separated them. They separated like tribes. They didn't want them to communicate. That was their secret weapon. They felt if we couldn't communicate, we couldn't speak or work toward revolt. They called it revolt. We called it fighting for our lives. They thought that. But how many of you know that only 25% of communication is verbal? The rest of it is body language, our eyes, how we move, what we do with our hands. We communicate. The drum is used for many occasions, for ceremony, celebration, healing, and as an instrument of war. Our brothers on the drums, they beat, and they knew what those were. They beat out the sounds of war that let them know we're gonna get it on. There were 55 so-called revolts above on slave ships. They didn't tell you that. 55, how do I know? Lloyds of London, who insured slave ships, wrote it in as a statement that they would cover slave insurrections. They called it slave insurrections. We called it fighting for our freedom. There were 55. Their feeling was they may have the guns, they may have the knives, they may have the machetes, but they can't kill us all. We're going to take this ship. They failed most of the time. We will never know how many were successful. But we fought. We fought. We used the drum. That was our communication. Coming to this country, we love the drum again. We brought with us, and we made and fashioned the drum. That was our communication. Many slave revolts from plantations were initiated with the drum. It wasn't long before the drum was outlawed, because though many failed, they were fearing that your desire for freedom would be voiced in the drum. The drum was outlawed. Now, how many know you can't keep a brother from his drum? You know, you know from a resourceful people, there is a rhythm that we began with the heels of our feet against the dry earth and clay. We drummed. We drummed. They may have outlawed that, but honey, they can't take the heel from it. There are those who still practice that. And those in folklore said they can hardly believe. It doesn't have the bass, but it has the same rhythm and sound of the drum. Yeah. Another method they wanted to try, they said, we're constantly in fear that these people that we have enslaved will have a sickness. They call the sickness this. It is a sickness that they named for those who were disgruntled about being enslaved. That was a sickness. How many know we all got that sickness for freedom? They thought by, let's Christianize them. We have found some things in the Bible that we can give to them and teach them about how the Lord loves a hard-working slave. The reason why you was born is for these crops. Slaves, be dutiful unto your master. They taught us that. But how many know that God ain't going to that? We found the book of Exodus. Anybody who knows the book of Exodus, that is a story of a God who hates slavery. A God who vanquished old Pharaoh and set the Hebrew children free. Oh, now you know that's something we could really get next to, and yes, we did. We found a God of liberation. We found a God that we look to, a God who loved us and had pity on our circumstances. We had nothing. We were little more than cattle. And we were told and treated as if we were cattle. But we found a God who said, you are mine. And we found comfort in that. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, you can have all this whole world, give me Jesus. These spirituals, these songs that people who could not read or write, they had never been to a music class. These came from our soul, from our culture that we walked with us from the homeland. They gave us comfort. They gave us a somebodyness. You were nothing to the slavers. You were nothing to the boss in the field. But when we escaped, tired, worn, after work, into the forest, to the camp meeting that we held in secret, we could sing our song. And we found in that liberation a somebodyness. You can't think about what you're going to do about your situation until you know, I deserve more. Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh, don't you know you feel some kind of way? That is our ancestors talking to us. They are telling us and reminding us that we are always in search of our liberation. We began to wear that song. It became us. We became Moses. Don't you know Harriet Tubman was called? What was she called? Moses of her people. That is the song we love. And we don't ever forget. But before Harriet, we had steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. Ain't that long to stay here? My brothers and sisters, I want to tell you, that was the favorite calling card of Nat Turner. Nat Turner, whom you may not know, and if you don't, you need to know more about him. He was a preacher, and he took that we had learned from past folks, as they call it. All skin folk ain't your kinfolk. So he only told select that he could trust. And he would sing that song, Steal Away. And that was a, come on y'all that know, come on, we're planning and plotting. They lost, but like our brothers on the ship, he believed, maybe I might not make it, but they can't kill us all. He lost, but no fight for freedom is ever lost. The blood that goes in nurtures the earth, and the fight and desire for freedom is always born again and again and again. Nat Turner sang that song, and Harriet Tubman after him. How many know you got to have more than one song if you're going to be playing the game she played? Her favorite song among those was Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. This is one she would sing when she came and missed them, and she'd act like she's working in the field and she's singing. Because many times our songs, how many know that the words you say in the song ain't exactly the words you mean? They are coded if you really belong and you really know what's going on. Meet me at the river. Swing low, sweet chariot. Can't you see him in the fields coming forth to carry me home? Can't you see him thinking, Lord, I think I'm ready to go? Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. She loved that song so. She sang that a many a day when she was carrying us all. They sang that song at her funeral. That is a beautiful song. When we sing these songs of our ancestors, we join hands with them that the struggle goes on. It is not over. It continues. They sang songs first of comfort. Then they sang songs of healing. And then they sang songs of escape. We are still in the long, dark night of our struggle. But when we sing our spirituals, they mean something. They are a message to all of us. Keep a fight. Keep a fight. Don't let go of the cloud. We still continue to fight. We shall overcome. You know that song? We shall overcome. Sing it like you mean it. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart. It's got to be deep in your heart. I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Next is Cheryl Oden. Cheryl uses storytelling to raise awareness, to foster connections, to inspire. Cheryl, she loves storytelling, all aspects of it. She crafts her own stories and she delves into African folklore, poems, and music. She is a social activist. Cheryl has worked hard to improve the literacy of incarcerated men. Let's give Cheryl a warm applause.
When I agreed to participate in this program, I didn't know what I was letting myself into. You have to be prepared, you have to research, you have to do all the things because you have a unique opportunity to share information. Last night I was troubled, I couldn't go to sleep. Up and down, I'd already decided on my stories, but I couldn't sleep. What was it? So I jotted a few things down, and I'm breaking the rules today. We're learning now that we can break rules. And so I wrote, just freehand, what was going on with me. And this is what I had. This afternoon here, at the right, we highlight in our individual performances examples of the many forms Black resistance has taken in our history. From leaving the door of no return. You know what that is, right? You know what the door of no return is? Okay? If you don't know, you need to know. And we're going to give you a history lesson, but you're going to have to take it further when you leave here. It doesn't just happen 28 days in February. 365. Okay. From leaving the door of no return, on board slave ships, and revolts both planned and spontaneous, from Nat Turner to Dr. King, Tupac, afros and secrets, Bessie Smith and Nina Simone, St. Stephen's AME Church and roller skating, the last poets, Toni Morrison, Black Wall Street, the Divine Nine, or the Big N.O., Northwestern High School. Gil Scott-Heron and Nancy Wilson. Beyonce, Pastor Kinloch, my pastor, and Share House, Narcotics Anonymous. Dedicated my life to working with addicts for 40 years. And I didn't lose anything, I gained everything. Mom and Dad, who? Belle Isle, Bob Lowe, Capri, where you at, baby girl?
What's up, baby?
Silence, Fear, Esquire corned beef, and 6-layer cakes. Preventable diabetes and high blood pressure. This is my list, and it ain't nearly complete. We are complex, and we've been misunderstood, and we don't care anymore. We will not ask for permission. Just get out of our way and let us rise. And with that, my first story is a personal one, and it's called The Dance. Yes, I was born in Detroit, on the west side, went to Northwestern High School, did all the things that people did when I was growing up. In 1967, we had a riot. Everything was changing. I think in '67, I wore my first pair of pants hidden in my room because we had to wear dresses everywhere we went. I pretended that water got in my cap when I was swimming, and as a result of that, I started wearing an afro and kept wearing it. I was being resistant. I found ways. I was from a large family, and they expected a lot of me, and I was sick of it half the time, but I did what I had to do. So on this particular day, I found out that when I went to Northwestern that they were going to have a special dance for all the freshmen. So my friends and I planned what we were going to wear, what we were going to do. I had on my burgundy. It was a popular color that time. And so that as I prepared to get ready to go to the dance, my mom walked in. Now we've got a strange relationship. And she said, "Where do you think you going?" And I said, "Well, Mom, you know, it's the dance." She said, "You didn't told me about no dance. Where you think you're going?" And I said, "Mom, I told Dad." She said, "That's the problem we have. You think you can go to Dad, get it pre-approved, and then I'm supposed to go along with it." I said, "Well, Mom, no." She said, "You know what? How you gonna get there?" I said, it's 3 blocks away, Mom. Who are you going with? My brother stepped in. He said, Mom, I'll take her up there. I'll make sure she's okay. She said, you better be glad, because something's going to have to happen here. And I sort of closed my eyes and I said, Lord, I didn't come this far in this burgundy and this natural. Not to have a good time. There's something wrong with this picture. I was about, 100 pounds lighter then, pumping and pumping. You know what I'm saying? And so then there was a hand that came up on the table, and I followed the arm up, and it was my brother. He stuck his hand out for me. He helped me out. We threw down for about 3 long records. I was so tired. I said, Lord, I'm glad my bro is here, but oh my goodness, he wants to dance all night. He was known as a really good, smooth dancer, and he taught me all the steps. So we sort of showed out. We danced side by side. We twirled. Memorable. Building memories. But my brother understood that I needed him. Our families understand that we need them. There's a power. This culture that we have, we're born with it. And they've done everything to destroy the family. But somehow or another, we keep making it through. 50 years of rap? Are you kidding me? So we have opportunities to be, to do, to enjoy. We weren't put here to suffer. Make your way. Find it out. Go to whoever you need to go to. Read. Get yourself a library card. But that day, I realized that this brother of mine that I thought was a ne'er-do-well changed everything for me, because he showed me he loved me. He's not here now, but he's in the room. I know he is, because that's what he did, and that's what families do for us. So we talked about music and resistance. So let's talk about family and resistance. That we have family members that we haven't been very close to. Some things happened some time ago. You can't even remember why. Okay, so let's do something about that. Let's make some changes, and you can do it today. It's just a flip of a switch. And so what I learned from that dance is that I had set my rep for Northwestern High School. I was known as somebody who could cut a rug. And so based on that, when I went to a dance in the future, oh yeah, the hands was coming. My next story, if I could, actually I have 3. I don't know how I got so lucky. I was trying to break the record of someone in Dabs. What's his name? Ivory. Oh. Ivory has 3 stories that he told in 20 minutes. So it's on and popping. I'm watching my clock. Okay, my next story is called Benches. After that experience, something changed in me. And I knew that I had something special. And I began to cultivate it. And I was always seen as smart. I didn't want to just be smart. I wanted to be an expert at something, that somebody had to pay me to get it. Now, you may not know me, you may not know my name, you may not know anything about me, but I'm like the people that you see and say, I need to know her. You want to know me. Okay, I've lived my life that way. Okay, so this story, Benches, is about a special relationship that I have with my dad. My dad was handsome. Though he couldn't read, He made up for everything by doing things that made him, set him apart. He owned a trucking company. He did his own thing. And whenever I saw him, I was just enriched by seeing the strength of this Louisiana man. My dad came from Bastrop, Louisiana. He was a sharecropper. And he only told me one story. And the story was the year that he was going to get a pair of shoes. So he worked hard, 6 days a week, maybe off on Sunday, not necessarily so. And he went in to see the master, and he said, the master said, "Oh, we've had a good year." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Boy, you've worked really hard." He said, "Yeah." He said, "You know what, son? We even." We even. He dared not say anything, right? But the next talk of the Great Migration, he was in on and made his way to Detroit. Now my dad, because he couldn't read, he had a thing about education. So we got a lawyer, we got 3 or 4 teachers. We understood that we represented him and we represented our culture. And so when I went away to college, the first in the house to go, I went to Oakland University. I knew I was going because every summer students would come down from the local colleges and they would talk with us about their experience. And so I knew I was on a pathway. Not only did I know I was going to college, but they ensured that I was going to go because they introduced a program called Upward Bound. I lived on college campuses. I traveled to other colleges. I knew I was going. Dad would come up to Oakland. He'd drive up to check on me. First one to go. He'd bring me something, $5, a record. He loved Al Green. He might throw a 45 in it. But he and I would sit down for hours and talk about what he had for me going forward. He did not want to talk about what happened in the past. Leave it there. It hurt too much. So it was about where you're going forward. He came so often that my friends knew him by sight. And so they'd say, let her know her dad's here. And so they'd run across campus and they'd, "Hey, your dad's here." I'm beating it, okay, because I'm going to get something from him. We sit on the bench, and I had to write this down, so that's why I got it in my hand. I'm 70, so I don't remember everything. He sat on that bench with me smelling of what? Old Spice. After he died, I bought some Old Spice, and I just take the lid off and just sit it in the corner. Memories, preciousness, someone who loved you unconditionally. And it would evoke what? Thoughts, feelings of closeness to someone who isn't here anymore in the physical sense. He's right over here. My dad. He'd come to that campus, all the students loved him. And we'd sit on the bench and he'd have his mixture number 79. He smoked a pipe. I never took that up, but I did take up a cigarette for a short time. Longer than I should have. But I was scared being on campus. Who knew that? We do. We make do. Wherever we are, we do our very best. And that's what he said. Do your best. God will take care of the rest. I think of him. I'm thinking of him very strongly right now. And I know that you all have memories of people who have told you things. Dig it up. Use it. Share it. Yeah, look at my note again. Sorry. One of the things that Dad and I used to do is we would come. Some people moaned, we hummed. And we'd hum songs. And I had shared with him an experience that I had when I wanted to join a choir. And to join the choir, you had to sing a solo. Now, I could do backup, but a solo? And he said, do your best, God will take care of the rest. One of our favorite songs to hum together was On a Hill Far Away Stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. But I love the personal stories of our hearts, just to let you know. But I love that old cross. I never said I was good, but I said I'd finish it. I said I would finish it. It's hard being in this world sometimes. The expectations are way up there. But we got to pull them up and make them manageable. That's what we do every day. I don't know what you went through to get here today, but if I started telling you, say, is she here for comedy? Because it's unbelievable what you see sometimes, what's going on in the lives of people. So always be kind. So when I sing the Old Rugged Cross, I have words that my dad has told me. I hear them, I react, and I use them for my greater good. You've got to use whatever it is you have at your disposal. My final story is a story that I call Mitty. Mitty, actually Mitty's a glove, a little Mitty. One day, I decided I was going to cook breakfast for my family and realized I didn't have the fixers. So I got in the car, went across the street to the Meijer, got everything that I needed, but before I even got in the store, it was a very windy day. I was fascinated by it. It's mine now. So I reached over and I rubbed that glove, that mitten, with its bright red and yellow. And now it sits on a dresser in my bedroom. And whenever I walk by, I get a large smile. My heart feels really good. And I realize that though there's a child somewhere who's missing a mitten, it's continuing to live on with me. We don't know what it's going to be. Also in this packages I have, excuse me. Wait, somebody cautioned me, don't do personal stories, but those are the ones I love. This handkerchief was given to me by my mom when I was 14 years old, and I'm 70, you do the math. My mom didn't have a lot to give. There were 9 of us, kids. But she's one of those that would reach over, grab your hand and leave something in it. You know what I'm saying? She gave me these and she said, always take one with you. Now, I usually put it in my safe deposit box, but I didn't do that because it would be improper to pull that out. But she gave me this and other little trinkets, and I treasure them all. When I put on a pin she gave me, it evokes a whole story of our life together. I didn't really understand my mom growing up, but in death, I see every single thing she was trying to tell me. And she was a good woman. And so when we talk about resistance, do your best. God will do the rest. Thank you.
That Vicki Slaughter. Now, Vicki Slaughter became interested and began to enjoy storytelling when she was an educator. You see, she would craft these tall tales and compose these plays for her nonverbal students. And they would actually perform the plays. Vicki, she continues to spread wisdom of African tales and African American stories because she performs at libraries, she performs at churches, she performs at schools. She's all over the community. This coming summer of 2023, you can find her book on shelves, Tori and the Rainbow. Let's give Vicki a warm welcome. Thank you. For my Lord, I am on the battlefield. For my Lord, I promised him that I would serve him till I died. I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. My name is Ida Bell Wells Barnett. I was born July 16, 1861, enslaved. My parents were also enslaved. I was the oldest of 8 children. You know, in 1865, the Civil War was over. But we were free in 1862, January the 1st, 1863, sorry, January the 1st, when Abraham Lincoln declared that all slaves in the southern states that were revolting, they would be free. My father's name was James. He was a carpenter, an excellent carpenter. Not only did he build furniture, but he built whole homes. My mother was a famous cook. They did so well after slavery was over that they were able to buy property and build a house. We lived in Holly Springs, Mississippi. It was not decimated like the rest of the South because President Grant's wife was a Southern lady. And Holly Springs changed hands between the South and the North, not once, not twice, not 3, 4, 7 times, can you believe it? But it was never burned because his wife, when the Southerners took over Holly Springs, the wife had tea parties for the officers. When the Union took over, then Grant was able to go home and visit his wife. Well, as time passed along, they did very well. The father went to college at Rush University. You know, the university was started by the Freedmen's Bureau through the Episcopal Methodist Church. Ida B. Wells went to kindergarten with her mother. Her mother learned how to read. As she grew, her father was known as a race man and a union man. So she would go with him to these meetings. And as a result, she became like a bulldog for freedom and a bulldog for things that had to be right.
I'm sorry.
When she was just 16 years old, when she was in college, she was so enraged by something that never could find out what, that the president of the college had done, that she marched right up to him and she grabbed him and she was in his face. fever came through the town. And it wiped out a lot of people, including her mother, her father, and her baby brother. So when she came back to town, she found that the people in the town had already divided up her brothers, her siblings. One other sibling had died at birth. She had one sibling that was a girl that was handicapped, and they decided to put her in an institution. And the two little girls, other families decided they wanted the girls, and the boys that were left, they decided, oh, he was such a great carpenter. We hope that he inherited his skills, and two white families took him. Well, you know how she was. I told you she was a bulldog and she was in your face all the time. So she reached up on the mantle and took out her shotgun and said, oh no, my parents do not want us separated. I will take care of my brothers and sisters. So some more people, she had some mentors, and they told her, well, why don't you go teach? So she decided she would study and she would take that teacher's exam, and she did. And so she went out of town every week, and then she would come back home on the weekend and wash and clean and cook. And in the meantime, her grandmother would come and stay with the children. Well, her grandmother died of a stroke after about 3 years of this. And someone else told her, said, well, why don't you go to Memphis? The teachers make a lot more money there. So what she did, she took the two little girls that were left and she went to Memphis. She took her brothers and gave them to other family members. In Memphis, it was wonderful. She took the train every day to her job to teach. She became like the backbone of the community. She started writing articles. She wrote articles, Dear Iola. And the people would ask lovelorn questions. It would ask questions such as, we were separated during slavery. How can I find my family? Her articles were so popular, not only the black newspapers took up her articles, but the black ones. In her school district where she worked, the black students were not getting books, they were not getting paper and pencils, the things that they needed. So she went back to the newspaper, and by this time she had bought half of the newspaper. And so she published what the school district was doing and not doing. And they got so angry that they fired her. But it didn't matter, because by then she was a well-respected speaker. She was traveling all over speaking and making money. She had probably over 12 different newspapers that her articles were being published in. And while she was out of town one day, and this is, I think, her defining moment, which really made her become the revolutionary that she was. Some friends of hers, and she was the godmother of one of the men's children, they opened a store just outside the store, but they didn't know that they were in there working. And so the deputy sheriff, he gets killed, and one of the other men gets wounded. So they were arrested and put in jail. Well, the men in the town, the black men in the town decided, well, you're not going to lynch these men. So they went and they stood outside with their guns waiting. They waited 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, and nothing happened. So they didn't think anything was going to happen. On the 4th night, when they went home, then the men were lynched. When I.W. Wells came home, she was just heartbroken. And the people decided they would boycott. So they wouldn't buy anything out any white stores. They would not ride the white trolley cars. after a while, people, they said, lost over $1 million in sales. So the sheriff came to Ida and said, I need you to talk to them. They'll listen to you. And she said, no. And so one day when she was out of town, she got these messages telegraphed to her. Don't come back here. They're waiting for you at the train station, and they're planning on lynching you. And while she was out, the paper that she owned part of, that person was beaten really bad. Her newspaper office was destroyed. The printing press were destroyed. The man that sold her the newspaper, he was beat up really bad. So she didn't come back. She went instead to Chicago. But in the meantime, the people were so outraged with the white community's actions that they decided to pull up. And some whole churches just pulled up, left their land, left their property, and they went west to the Indian Territory. Do any of you know where the Indian Territory is now? What is it called? That's right, Oklahoma. So a whole community, whole churches just left and went to Oklahoma. Well, in the meantime, Ida, she went to Chicago, and she met a man. Before that, she wouldn't date. Her name had been slandered. When her father died, he had left $300 with a local doctor. He said, if anything happens to me, I want you to give this to my family. So the doctor had told her, meet me in the park and I will give you this money. So she did, and he gave her the money. And so people said, well, that's why she wanted her kids and to be by herself so that she could carry out her activities. And she accepts money from white men. So she was really hurt by that. And so Ida would not date. She would not go out in small groups. If she went out in big groups. Because she said, Lord, if you keep me and protect me, I'll always fight for you. And so that's what she did. So finally she met an older man and she married him. Around this time too, there was a lot of lynching going on because Ida B. Wells is famous for fighting against lynching. So she started writing articles about lynching. She decided that she would take it to Europe. And she said, if I tell the people in Great Britain and all over that what's going on with this lynching, because after slavery, there wasn't a lot of lynching during slavery, but after slavery, the new Jim Crow laws kind of reinforced that. It was like terrorism. So she went, but nobody believed her in Europe. So she came back home. She barely had enough money to get home. Well, about the time when she had her first child, a newspaper came to her and hired her to be an investigative reporter. So she went to Europe this time, and she spoke all over. And also in Europe at this time, women were fighting for their rights. Because during that time, women were considered children. They couldn't, if they got divorced, they couldn't get custody of their children. They couldn't inherit land and money. They were just considered children. And so women were chaining themselves to doors. They were starving themselves. And if you look if you Google suffrage, you will see women being forced with tubes down their throat, being forced to eat. So anyway, she came back home and she decided there was so much lynching going on that she wrote this book called The Red Record. And what she did, she used the white newspapers to establish her percentages. She looked to see if really did this black man rape this white woman, or was it something else? And then she would go to the families, she would travel and go to the families and friends and talk to them. And in her book, she pointed out, you left black men in charge of your plantation. You left them, the women, under their care, and there were no rapes. Why are there rapes all of a sudden? But anyway, she found out that they're really, usually, if the man had been intimate with the woman, it's because she knew him and she agreed to it. So anyway, she kept writing. She also did some research in Arkansas. The farmers were trying to start a union. And so she went there, and they passed her off as one of the farmers' wives, and she went in to the jail and she interviewed all of them, and she came back and she did a pamphlet. And it told about what was really going on, that they didn't want to pay the black farmers the same thing that they paid the white, and the black farmers wanted to make a union, and this is why they were in jail. She also, during this time, the World Exposition was in New York, but there was no representation of blacks. So her and Frederick Douglass, they wrote an article on why there was no representation by blacks at the World Exposition. Also, you see this? She was a suffragette also. She also spoke out for women's rights. Does anyone know when the amendment, what is the amendment for women to vote? What is it?
19th.
That's right. It's the 19th Amendment that allowed women to vote. Well, there was a great march, and she went to the march. Susan B. Anthony told her that she had to go to the back of the line with the rest of the blacks. And she said, I'm not marching back there, and she didn't. Also, Susan B. Anthony told her, how can you be a suffragette and you're married and you have children? You're not a real suffragette. But it didn't matter. She kept on working and writing. She bought a newspaper from her husband, and she was the editor. She really worked, but guess what? There were never any laws passed till today. There's not one against lynching. But she kept on working until she died at the age of 68. But her children worked. They got her book published about her life. And if you Google these books, you can go and buy these books and maybe buy one. Thank you. Ida B. Wells, Barnett. I'm all multi-talented educator and performing artist. This is Michelle McKinney. Let's give her a round of applause. All right. Thank you. Very good.
Give a round of applause for our tellers. Give yourselves an applause as well. I'd like to thank for all of you who have been out today. I said wild rather, and just an incredible experience, incredible time. Again, my name is Larry Castleberry. Love you all. We appreciate you being here. Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. If you want to find out more about us, like Lisa said, please look us up on the website. I also, again, would like to reach out. I would be remiss if I did not do this. I want to again to say thank the Charles H. Wright Museum, Marlene Martin for allowing us to be here. Reached out to her, Yolanda Jack, and as I said earlier, Jatu Gray, and Jamia, I'm sorry. She's here. She made sure that we got in. So I want to say thank you to all of you. And again, I want to say thank you to our MC, all of our tellers, Michelle, for your incredible job.